This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. So we've had some time to let the game sink in. Now let's answer some questions that we had after the game. And a lot of these questions are going to be about the aftermath of Jed Wills being injured in that game. What looked like to be a season-ending injury. Now, I don't know if that means ACL tear or severe knee ligament strain. Either way, at the halfway point of the season, if it's anything severe enough to cart him off, it's likely more than an 8-week injury. Like, in best case scenario, it's something that he needs like a scope for, and he's not going to need like full surgery to fix, and it's not going to take him a year to get back. And ACL injuries for offensive linemen, like, they're terrible to deal with. So hope it's not that. But either way, the Browns should probably be prepared for the worst when it comes to this injury, and it's a pretty significant position to get injured. Eric Produces says, with Jed Wills possibly done for the year now, who do you think the likely candidates to play left tackle are? Do you think there's a better chance of staying internal, snagging someone like Jason Peters off of Seattle's practice squad, or go out and get someone like La'el Collins? So there are some options, limited options for the Cleveland Browns. There are two ways they can go about doing this. They can get somebody who's old, but that you know, and they can go ahead and keep somebody who's either on the practice squad, which they've already picked up their practice squad guy, right? The guy that they liked that ended up on the practice squad they made active. So they've already done that even before the Jed Wills injury. Or they can just stick with what the backup situation is right now. The Browns have a couple of ways to go about this. So let's talk about the backup. I mean, not the backup. Let's talk about signing the veteran that you all know. Now, I'm pretty sure we have gone past the point, now that Joe Thomas is in the Hall of Fame, that if we get an injury on the offensive line, we're not asking Joe Thomas if he can play. That man in the Hall of Fame, he not doing it. I think we're past that point, but just in case somebody was going to drop it, I'm just going to cover that base right here. Secondly, you have three names here I see that are veteran players. I think you named two of them that would make a little bit of sense here. Taylor Lewan is one that I haven't heard anybody bring up. He has confirmed that he is not retired. He is still available for NFL teams. What that price is at this point in time, we don't know. La'el Collins, he is back from injury. From what I hear, his release had less to do with his health and his ability to play and more to do with money. But what concerns me is nobody's brought him in. Like, nobody's tried to bring him in. Bit of a concern there with La'el. But at this point, I don't know if you got better options. Jason Peters, who's old, right? Much older than Taylor Lewan, much older than La'el Collins. So those are the guys you know that aren't on the team that could be brought in. There's no realistic scenario this year where, like, Dwan plays left tackle, by the way. I know somebody's going to suggest that. There's no realistic scenario where that happens. On the roster, you have James Hudson, Leroy Watson, who you just picked up off of the practice squad. Jed Wills just went down, and then I believe you have on the practice squad another tackle. Yeah, you get Garyon Christian and Alex Leatherwood still on the practice squad. So I'm going to start this out by saying none of those options are great, right? I'd much rather have Jed Wills. Is all the problems that Jed Wills gives you, I'd much rather have him. Say what you want about him. He's at least a starting quality tackle most of the time. The issue with James Hudson is he has no anchor. I don't see that fixing itself. It's his third year in the NFL or fourth year in the NFL. He has not developed an anchor. It's a problem. But if you can somehow form the protections around him to where it doesn't matter that he doesn't have an anchor, maybe you got something. So Bill Callahan magic for the win, right? I know absolutely nothing about any of the tackles below James Hudson. I could not tell you if those guys are actually good or not. I have no clue. That's something for Corey Kinnan or Jake Burns to give you that. I don't dig that deep. I dig deep. I don't know what the tackle. I would be lying to you if I said with any confidence that I thought that any of these guys come. All I know is that the Browns must like them. Alex Leatherwood's another guy who used to be a tackle for the Raiders. He was terrible. And seeing that he's been on the practice squad all year, I don't think we've seen significant progress from Alex Leatherwood, seeing that they've been willing to elevate other tackles, not him. So do not think Alex Leatherwood is coming in to save the day. Now, when it comes to Jason Peters, at least he's in the league, right? Like, that's the thing that's tough, because Jason Peters is easily the oldest and more visibly cooked guy on this list, but he's the one guy that's still in the league. And he played pretty well when the Cleveland Browns played against him. So maybe there's something to just having a veteran offensive lineman on there. If you want to go that route, you might want to give a knock to Taylor Lewan and see what's up with him, or Lael Collins, who hasn't played very much left tackle in the NFL because he was a guard, I believe, for a chunk of time for the Cowboys. Then he flipped the right, and then he played right for Cincinnati. So I don't know if he can play left tackle for you. So Taylor Lewan and Jason Peters are the only two veteran left tackles even out there. Who knows if Taylor Lewan wants to play for the Browns, and who knows what its price is. For veteran players, we always assume that you can just offer the league minimum to somebody and they're going to play. No, these veteran players like Ndamukong Suh that they're available normally because they're willing to play at a certain amount and a certain amount only, right? I'm pretty sure Taylor Lewan and Lael Collins are good enough to get on the NFL roster. The issue is they're not willing to play for anything, right? Especially like a Taylor Lewan who's made a lot of money outside of football. He probably wants to play at like $8 to $10 million a year. I don't know what that's prorated to. That's going to probably be $5 million for the rest of this year if you're the Cleveland Browns. So he's probably going to want to sign for $5 for the rest of the year. And Lael Collins probably wants like $6. Well, not $6 for the rest of the year. He probably wants like $4 for the rest of the year. And that's the kind of dilemma, right? Do you want to spend $5 million on a tackle who you're not even sure is in NFL shape, who would have to learn your offense? Do you want to spend $4 million for a tackle who's, you're not, with Lael Collins, you're not sure is in shape, has to learn your offense? Or do you just want to stick with what you have? Or you want to get somebody you know's in shape with Jason Peters? We'll see what happens, man. It's going to be a hell of a job for Andrew Berry coming up here. And he's known to get creative, so I wouldn't be too shocked if he gets a little creative with this. But yeah, man, it's a hell of a dilemma to be in. But this is where I trust a bit of what this building has done over the last few years when situations like this arise. Because say what you want about PJ Walker, they found enough at quarterback when Deshaun Watson went out to stay alive in the toughest division in football. During a stretch of games, you would not imagine that the Browns would have came out with on the positive side without Deshaun Watson. Andrew Berry, Kevin Staten, they found a way, right? Nick Chubb going down. No way they're going to stay in the top 5 in rushing yards. They've managed to find a way to stay in the top 5 in rushing yards. You can say all you want about how they get there, who they should use more, all of this. But the thing is that big injuries has happened this year, years before, to this team, And this front office and this coaching staff has found a way to duct tape over these injuries. It's pretty remarkable. They're 5-3, and we don't even talk about Nick Chubb being out for the year anymore. We don't even talk about the fact that Jack Conklin's been out the year, most of the year. So this is where I have some faith in Andrew Berry to figure something out. It's a tough spot, and the suggestions I threw out there weren't great. So I'm trusting him to figure it out. I think he will. I think he will. Jason says, I like Ford considering the circumstances, but why doesn't the coaching staff get him to cut back and get upfield when he clearly cannot beat anybody on the outside? I don't think that's true. He had some great runs. Almost none of them were on. No. That's not true. A lot of his great runs are on the outside. Jerome Ford has good speed. The reason he bounces these things to the outside is because he does have the speed to the outside. I think you should reevaluate some of what you've watched of him. Anything outside the hashes, outside the tackle box is running outside. He can do that very well. Now, if you're talking about when he stretches things out all the way to the sideline, usually that happens because somebody missed a block or he missed a read, right? That's not normally the intention, to have somebody run outside the numbers in between the sideline area. So, no, I think Jerome Ford's good. I think he's fine enough there in that role. He's a home run hitter. I think people have to understand that. He's not necessarily going to be there to get the 1 to 2 yard run. That's going to be Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt's going to be in on short yardage situations and first down and maybe in the red zone, right? But if you need somebody to hit a home run, to hit a chunk play, and you're starting your drive off at the 20, you're going to run Ford, and you're going to run Pierre Strong. And they've hit a fair amount of home runs throughout this season with Jerome Ford. So, yeah, I think that they're teaching him to run how he runs because they want him to be a home run hitter, right? They see his use as somebody who complements Nick Chubb, not replaces him. And that's what he's going to be. He's a home run hitter. And if he gets good at that, he will be a feature back. So I think while it's frustrating, you have to understand the role that they're asking him to play. And I think that's part of it. Oliver says, great game with complimentary football. How much did you prefer Prochet returning kicks today? I know we have had 2 boneheaded penalties that canceled a few returns, but I enjoyed us finally getting consistent 10-yard returns on punts. Very encouraging. Now, again, this could be that the Arizona Cardinals punt team is just terrible. Like, I don't factor that out. So, we'll see what James Prochet does versus his old team next week. But yeah, I like what I saw. I like how he got north-south. I like the decisions he made when he was back there returning the punts. I don't expect him to be a dynamic returner every week, but I do think he has good instincts to be a possession punt returner. And if you know me, that's all I want, man. That's all I want from the punt. I don't care, bro. It would be cool if you could return the kicker too. That's awesome. I'm never going to say don't do it. But man, if you can just be competent with them punt returns, I will not complain. Okay, I will never complain about competent special teams because that's all I require. I will never complain because competent special teams isn't great special teams. I only require competency from special teams, in my opinion. Jordan says, at the end of the season, will the Browns move Dwan to left tackle and have Conklin start at right tackle next year? Allows for us to open up cap space and possibly get a day 2 pick. How does it open up cap space? Because okay, so let's just address the meat of that question, right? The Dwan Jones, Jack Conklin part of that question. There is a want, because we do see that we have 2 good right tackles in Dwan Jones and Jack Conklin. Now, obviously, it's not a problem right now because Jack Conklin is injured. But if Jack Conklin comes back, and that's an if because he's had a lot of injuries back to back to back, I don't know. Would you flip Dwan over to left? I would say probably not. The reason I'm saying probably not is I don't think there's a reason to trust Jack Conklin to stay healthy. Let's say we go through all this work, flip Dwan to left tackle. Dwan flips the left tackle. Jack Conklin gets hurt immediately. Like he has the last few years. What now? You see what I mean? I just don't trust Jack Conklin to stay healthy. Now, if we were living in a hypothetical, well, in a hypothetical situation where you could guarantee that Jack Conklin is not going to get hurt, would I think about it? Yeah, if you felt like Dwan could play left tackle, if Bill Callahan felt like Dwan can switch to left tackle, and that wouldn't be a problem, then of course you would try that, right? Because Dwan Jones is really good. And if he could be really good on that left side, that'd be really helpful. But if that's not the case, and if you aren't 100% confident about the health and the security of whoever you're going to have be that right tackle, then it's not worth risking it. Because what could happen is that you flip Dwan to left tackle. He's significantly worse at left tackle than he is at right tackle. And then Jack Conklin goes down at right tackle, and now you got no tackles. There is a significant risk in flipping Dwan Jones to left tackle. It's a calculated risk that you have to take. And I don't think the Browns' calculation makes sense right now to take that risk, if I'm being perfectly honest here. Because, again, you just can't trust Jack Conklin to stay healthy. In that scenario, requires Jack Conklin to stay healthy. You just can't bet on that. Can't bet on that. Alexander Harrell says, with Goodwin out, possibly who gets called up from the practice squad, Darden or Austin Watkins? Probably neither. I think you're going to see James Prochet, and then David Bell's going to be back from injury. So I think it's probably going to be something along those lines. Dylan says, yo, Q, little concerned about how quickly Watson is trying to escape the pocket. Seems like he isn't reading the defense and looking immediately. What do you think? I didn't get that sense at all, to be honest with you. I felt like he was spending an appropriate amount of time in the pocket, and I didn't get the sense that he was running out of clean pockets. Obviously, I have a better read on this once the film comes out, but I felt like Watson was actually doing a pretty good job of doing that, of staying in the pocket, leaving when he needed to, and when he did, he slowed down enough to make some reads and make some plays with it. So, nah, I don't agree with that assessment of it. Brutus Brownie says, why are some of Watson's passes low to the ground? Also, the offense tends to do more east-west passing concepts than north-south. Why do you think that the Stefanski scheme is that way? Well, I don't think it's that way, to be honest with you, Brutus. So I'll start with the first part of your question. Why are Watson's passes low to the ground? A lot of what I think his passes are low to the ground is like feel, touch, and footwork. I think this is just him still working back and being comfortable with the footwork and timing required in this offense, since that is the most different thing that he's doing from when he was in Houston. So it's just getting comfortable doing that, and once he gets comfortable doing that, I think he will hit those passes. And also, it's like feeling comfortable leaning out, throwing that ball, knowing how much time you have to rip a ball, all that. I think that's kind of factoring into that. And his feet aren't great all the time. It's just confidence, reps. He needs more reps. I think that'll fix itself with time. The offense tending to do more east-west passing than north-south. Now, the passes that are going to be completed in any offense are always going to be horizontally, right? Like, because those are going to be where most of your passing lanes are. When you take shots, you attack vertically. Think of the defense as a piece of cloth, right? If you pull a piece of cloth, I can't talk today. If you pull a piece of cloth and you only stretch it horizontally, it doesn't tear. If you flip it and then only stretch it vertically, it doesn't tear. What needs to happen for you to rip a piece of cloth is that you need to pull it from multiple different directions, right? You need to pull it to the side while trying to pull it down, right? You need to crease it. That's what every passing offense has. So sometimes, and oftentimes, if you want to hit high percentage stuff, what you're going to do is try to rip the proverbial paper, right? Rip the defense vertically. So you're trying to stretch them vertically. And then by stretching them vertically, you're trying to rip them horizontally. So you want to put somebody in conflict to where they have to choose vertical or horizontal. Whether they got to choose vertical or we'll call it curl flat, right? That's a better way to describe this. So vertical or curl flat. And then that player is more than likely going to not want to get beat over top. He's going to choose the vert, which means curl flat going to be open. So that's why you see more horizontal stuff in the passing offense. Then that's going to be the same thing for any NFL team. If you look at them, most of the easier throws, the bulk of throws in an NFL offense are always going to be, outside the numbers, outside the hashes, in between the numbers. Like, that's on both sides of the field. That's where the bulk of passing gets done, because that's the biggest space that you can free up, and the easiest space to free up with leverage, with how you can run your routes. So that's normal. Every team only attacks north-south every once in a while with the passing offense. You can't do it all the time, because if you did, you would throw a lot of interceptions, a la Baker Mayfield in 2019. So I hope that answers the question, Brutus. Chris Russell says, how's Deshaun so accurate on deep balls coming off of injury? Even before the injury, we hadn't seen him take shots that far down the field. Now he's connecting with ease. What happened? I think you're forgetting a lot of the throws that were made in that Tennessee Titans game. I would go back and watch that if I were you. He made a few deep throws in that, a few incredible deep balls in that, and he's back to doing what he normally does. So this isn't anything new. This is just the result of him rehabbing an injury and getting back to 100% health. And that's a credit to the medical staff and the work that Deshaun Watson did during the rehab period. That's all it is. Ian says, hey Q, thinking longer term hypothetical here. Let's say the defense continues to play at this level, Deshaun returns to Houston levels. Do you think that this team has the firepower to make it and win a championship? My concern is that the offense is capped without the threat of Nick Chubb. It's an interesting question, right? Because we've been so focused on just getting this defense to normal so we can win a lot of regular season games that we're not really talking about what it takes to be a great postseason team. And that is somewhere where I do worry about this team not having enough firepower. At receiver, if a team decides to dedicate themselves to taking out Amari Cooper, I don't really trust our other options outside of maybe David Njoku, but that's also another position that's easy to blanket. So, do you think Elijah Moore can step up enough to hurt a defense, or Cedric Tillman? I don't know if we're at that level yet. The run game, it's one thing to have great running performances in the regular season versus even decent teams. It's another thing to do it when teams know you're going to do it, and that's what Nick Chubb's really good for, right? There's no doubt that there is a part of your offense that is capped because you don't have Nick Chubb here. The question is, how good is 2020 Deshaun Watson in 2023, right? If he gets back to the hypothetical Houston levels, how good is that? Is that good enough quarterback play to make those things not matter? Because we can only look at that 2020 season in context with other 2020 seasons. But the fact is, between that season and now, 5 other franchise quarterbacks have entered the conversation. 6 if you count CJ Stroud already. So if we're doing that, then we got to ask ourselves, how good was that 2020 season in the context of today? I don't know. So yeah, if Deshaun Watson's best is somewhere below Joe Burrow, somewhere below Justin Herbert, then I don't think the Browns have enough firepower. If Deshaun Watson's best puts him up there with Pat Mahomes or Joe Burrow, yeah, of course, then that's enough. But we got to see where that's even at, right? I think we've been so far removed from that even part of the conversation that we haven't even talked about that. But yeah, right now I do worry about the firepower against the elite teams in NFL. I have no issue with what they have versus most teams. When we're talking about beating the Chiefs consistently, beating the Bengals, well, I mean, they have a good thing going against the Bengals, but still, the team is talented as Cincinnati, or even a Miami team. I do worry about that. So Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know the answers to that, but it's a good thing. It's a good discussion jumping off point. Dog Check Central says, "Hey Q, Kevin Stefanski is without a doubt a winning coach. It seems that every time we lose, the fans blame Kevin and they want him fired. Do you think this will continue even if he brings us to the playoffs?" On some level, yeah. Like, I think every time that people feel like expectations in one way or the other aren't being met, they're going to suggest firing a coach. It's just what it is, right? It can make sense. It cannot make sense. It's up to the team to make sure that they don't take every single plea for firing a coach dead serious. And it's up to management to make sure they make the right decisions with coach. I think Kevin's been a great coach. I think he's been clearly the best coach that this team's had since expansion. And while that's not the highest bar in the world, you look at a lot of other coaches in the NFL, I think, a lot of teams would love to have Kevin. Kevin's done a good job here. I think he's built a winning culture. I think he's built a winning locker room. I love how this team continues to respond to tough situations. That is a thing that is a characteristic that you can look at every year of Kevin Stefanski, a team that responds to tough situations. And that's what's happened with him. I think that he is a really competent coach. Is he the best coach? I don't think that really matters, right? I don't think coaches are like football players where they got overalls on Madden and it matters if your coach is a 90 and this coach is a 82. Like, as long as your coach is competent, I think that's all that matters, right? As long as your coach can competently create a program, competently create an environment for success, then the players fill in the blanks for the rest, right? So that's where I'm at with Kevin. I think, it's easy to blame the coach. It's easy to point fingers at the coach because the coach has this job that we can't really define what's actually their fault and what's not their fault. So it's up to a lot of, suggestion on whose fault it actually is. And when that's the case, they're always going to blame the coach. So, it's tough. It's tough, but I think Kevin's going to be all right, man. Oliver Kane says, "It seems to me that the escape check down plan was different today and better coordinated. It looked a lot better prepared with both of our offensive tackles injured and DW4 working back from injury. Do you think we must continue investing time in this aspect of their game?" I just think Deshaun Watson did a better job of being aware, to be honest with you. I didn't think that they coordinated anything differently around it. I just think Deshaun did a good job this week of slowing himself down when he got rushed or got flushed out the pocket and not automatically going to, I need to run, I need to make a play, I need to throw this ball across my body. He slowed down, ran, saw what the lane looked like, and said, hey, I can dump it off to Jon Ford. Or he slowed down, decided I could step up, make a throw here to Amari Cooper for one of the biggest plays of the game. I think this was more about Deshaun slowing things down in his mind and playing less rushed as the time went on. And I think that's important, right? Because a lot of times it felt like Deshaun was moving much faster than he needed to in the pocket. Today, I felt there was more of a calmness similar to what I felt like when he played Tennessee, where there was a calmness to his game. This week, especially in that last quarter of the game, I felt there was a calmness with him in the pocket that, again, I felt like maybe in the Tennessee game. So I think that's what it was. He had a sense of calm. He understood where everything was. There was more comfort with everything. And, hey, shout out to him because it's clear to me he's been making sure that he stayed sharp mentally during this injury because he came out of it. I felt like he came out of it mentally looking a lot more comfortable with this offense and what he can and cannot do in it. Now he has to just get to where he is mentally, physically, and he's going to be all right. My man User says, I'm glad to see Myles Garrett has plenty of help from the rest of the defensive line. Do you think they can keep playing at this level for the rest of the season? I think this defense goes where the defensive line goes. If you want to see the dominant performances by this defense, it usually is followed by short pocket times, right? If this defense can get pressure, they can get away with running man. These corners are dangerous. They're going to get a lot of turnovers. If they can't get a lot of pressure from that front forward, then they're going to struggle. So that's the big question. I think it's going to be a big test this week, going up against a good offensive line in the Baltimore Ravens. Can this Browns team create a pressure plan to get away with man coverage like they've been getting away with for the last for most of these games this year? And when you look at the stuff that works against the Browns, it's usually not quick hit stuff, right? It's usually like a pick play, a rub route, a counter fake or something like that. These are things that take a while to develop, and the biggest counter to man coverage is time. So if the Browns can condense that time, then they can condense the solution to man coverage. So that's really what it's going to be about, man. The Ravens are going to be a tough team, and they're going to be a tough test for this team. But I expect to be in that game for all 4 quarters if Deshaun Watson's healthy and he's ready to build on what he did this week. And I expect any week, honestly, even if it's PJ Walker, to be in the game for 4 quarters and try to have a chance to win at some point, because this is a good enough team to expect those kind of things with. So thank you for the question, Multi-Arch. And that's it for the questions for Q&A. You guys have a great day. Have you a better night. Peace.